So we are live.
There
Substack,
we go.
hello. I am so happy to be here. I'm so excited to have a special guest and to dive into this topic. We were just nerding out a second ago because we're both new to doing the Substack live. And did you know there's a preview room and you can meet and chat like a Zoom beforehand? Mind blown on that part. But welcome, everyone. If you're just hopping on, feel free to say hi. Let us know that you are here. We're going to talk about becoming the richest and happiest CEO that you know, which is a topic that has been always near and dear to me, but something I've just been thinking about a lot recently in my business as I've just been in extra gratitude for having created success that feels very much on my terms and in alignment. And I call it my pinch me happy little life, but also realizing how much of what I've created isn't what the industry has told me I should have or want, or what society has told me I should have or want, and how fulfilled and happy I am, I think, because I've chosen my own path. And I think that's a lot of what we'll speak to. And I posted something on Substack the other day about essentially when you start making money and having success, one of the best things is it gives you the vantage point and discernment to see how much you don't want that you think you're supposed to have. And Carly, who I'm going to introduce you to, posted a question that she's been asking. And I thought it was just genius and so aligned with some of the things I think about. And so we've been chatting and I wanted to bring you on so we could unpack that. But before we go to that, do you actually want to do everybody who doesn't know you a favor and introduce yourself, tell them who you are and a little bit about your work, and then we'll dive into all the things.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's amazing to be here on our very, very different time zones. It's first
Very
thing in the
different.
morning
Yes. Oh
for
my gosh.
me
Thank you.
and last thing in the day for you. So appreciate that flexibility. So hi, my name's Carly. I'm an ex-therapist and I came into the coaching world about 8 years ago. So I come to it from a different angle from a lot of people. And I come to it from the angle of first originally being an organizational well-being and culture consultant. So a lot of like engagement and happiness at work and excitement, about being in a culture that really serves like the business mission and obviously the people amongst it. That was always such an incredibly important piece to me, having done my master's from that perspective as well. And coming into the coaching world, eventually becoming a business coach, that was a real focus for me, is like, how do we have these businesses that, they give us all of the things that we decide that we want when we come in, the freedom, the money, all of these amazing things, but also how do we get it to give us the fulfillment that we want as well? Because I think a lot of people, rightly so, assume that once I have the money, I will just automatically be happy. And of course, as we both know, it's such a more complex recipe for fulfillment and happiness than we think that it is. It's not just about money. It's about how we make that money. It's about how we use that money. It's about how values aligned we are, and ultimately as well, how happy we are in ourselves. So that's where a lot of my work centers. And I'm also a mentor for coaches as well. So I teach coaches that background to psychology that I guess a lot of coaches get really drawn into once they've been in the game for a little while. So that's a little bit about me. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, I thank you again, because I don't know that everybody knows this, but we are literally in opposite time zones. So you're up early, and I appreciate that. But when you posted this question, when I took a peek at your work, I was immediately drawn to it, because what I appreciate so much is so much of what you're speaking to is not only the psychology behind this and behind what drives us and what drives us to chase or not chase, and the fear aspect of that and the proving aspect and the conditioning aspect of that. And I think there's so many layers we don't realize when we come into business that drive or stall us out and have us shrink when it comes to building, growing success and the money aspect, but also just how much you clearly speak to that fulfillment piece. And I do think it's just so much more nuanced, and we'll dive into all of the things. But I think to start, just so that we have a focal point for the conversation, I'd love if you to share the question you posed as a comment, because that was what hooked me. I was like, oh, I love this question so much.
Yeah, so the question is a question that I have been asking myself again and again and again these last few years. Having created success, it's just something that really keeps me focused on my North Star. And the question is, if nobody could see me have this thing or this outcome or this accolade, would I still want it? And it's not a perfect question, but it's a question that helps me really remember that what makes me genuinely happy is not often the thing that looks good to somebody else, or is impressive to somebody else, or is what somebody else assumes I should have. It's what keeps me focused on, if no one is watching, what is it that I actually want in this world, in this life?
I think it is. I mean, you said it's not a perfect question, and I guess nothing's perfect, but I think it's such a great question because it taps on so many different layers. I really loved it. I've been asking a question. It's a little bit different, but similar along these lines, just in terms of if nobody was watching me and if, nobody was going to know that I had this and I didn't have to worry about being responsible and I didn't have to worry about the how, what would I want? And I think your question is a little bit of like an add-on to that. I
Yeah.
think we don't realize how much when we go into business, how much our conditioning and how much we create from the outside in instead of the inside out based on
Mm,
how it's going to look to others or how it's going to
mm,
protect us from others or all of these different pieces. And so I love that question because when you asked that question, one of the things that came up for me immediately was not only would I still want this, but it made me realize how many things I don't always allow myself to want because I'm
mm,
afraid of what will people think if I want this and if
mm.
I stretch. And so I think there's just so many interesting nuances
Goes both
to that
ways.
question. Yeah. And so
Mm.
I'm curious for you with your work and clients and just what you've seen in terms of, I mean, both this question, but what we're talking about. Do you see it come from both sides of both sort of that conditioning to want for that shiny, proving aspect, but also maybe that shrinking and not
Yeah.
allowing ourselves to want side of things?
Absolutely, and I think a lot of women will resonate with this. Is that I tend to work with a lot of women who are like they have this side to them that's very ambitious, and they want so many beautiful things for themselves in their lives, and they come into business, they create those things, and there is that part of them as well that is kind of like, but what will people think? I live in New Zealand. I don't know if you know about this thing called tall poppy syndrome. You heard
Yes.
about it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I have a couple
It is,
clients in that area, and it's apparently very like more prevalent there, like a
yeah, it's
cultural piece.
huge in Australia and New Zealand. It's a very interesting cultural like phenomenon where, and it's especially women, but it is everybody, kind of has this, I guess, belief set that it's really not safe to stand out. It's really not safe to be openly successful, which is interesting because our cultures they tend to be quite laid back, and but it's so different when you step foot in America, for example, where success and personal success is so much more celebrated. So I do tend to work with a lot of Kiwis and Aussies who have that push pull almost like, I want all of these things and these are all very values aligned for me, and I want to let myself have that. And at the same time, I'm really afraid that what if I let myself have that and people tear me down? Because unfortunately, it's not just a fear, it is something that does happen. I've experienced it myself. A lot of my clients have. You have as well. Yeah. Yeah, and it's something, it's so odd when we live our lives and we run our businesses in such public arenas where literally anybody could stumble onto our page and see, without any context, what's going on or who we are, or understand anything about the success that we've created. It's definitely something that is front of mind for a lot of people. It's one of those upper limits that I tend to be coaching through almost every coaching session. There's a flavor of it for sure.
Similar. I think in some ways I see more of this flavor than the not. I do see the proving flavor as well, like wanting things just because that's what we've been told we're supposed to have and want. But I think I see
Mm.
more of the tall poppy syndrome flavor. We don't call that here, but I call it hiding in plain sight. I think it's a
Ah, yeah.
similar thing, and I think that's something that's interesting because to what you're saying, I think there's also an element of while this is a fear we might have, and there's conditioning around this, there's also an element of truth. It's not as if
Mm.
you have more visibility, you have more success, you make more money, that you might not get some of that hate or that pushback. And so I'm curious, since this has come up with your clients so much, and this is so much of the work you do on that side, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit, just whether that's in terms of how you think about this and approach this with clients or how you work through that. I think that would be just invaluable for everyone.
Yeah. So I think, until we experience something, it's completely theoretical, right? And so with a lot of clients, there is that fear of like, what if I do this? Or what if I have this? Or what if I achieve this? Or what if I share that I've achieved this and something bad happens? And when something is theoretical, it's theoretical. You can't work with it. And so there does become an element of actually we have to expose ourselves, or we get to choose to expose ourselves, I should say, to these things that we're so afraid of and see what happens on the other side. And it's not a guarantee that something bad won't happen, but there is a lot of, my clients and I often have conversations about, well, what is it that you are actually really afraid will happen? Tell me, like, what are the things, logical or illogical, that you really are so afraid of will happen if you do this thing or share this thing? And then we get to really look at it, and we just go so granular, all of these little things, whether it's what someone from high school is going to say, or it's maybe what your mum's going to think, or whatever it is. And then we go through each of those things and we get to look at it. And the question that I love to ask is, if that happened, if that actually happened, how would you handle it? Like, word by word, what would you actually do? How would you respond to that? And again, it's not a solution, but it is a priming where the client starts to realize, oh, okay, I have the tools to lean back on if that were to happen to me. And a lot of what my clients end up coming to is this realization of, like, me overcoming this is actually not just for me to live a great life, it's also to model for other women, especially, that it's actually okay to be this loud and proud about the things that we have worked for and the hard situations that we have put ourselves in order to create this level of success. And that then becomes an extra kind of like leg to their motivation. There's an extra level of like, actually, I want to do this because I want my daughter to see me do this, or I want to do this because I want my clients to see me do this and see that it's okay. And when that motivation becomes about someone other than just us and what we're going to get, it really does help to kind of push them outside of that comfort zone. And I was talking to an ex-client yesterday, and she was sharing on her stories about some of the stuff that she had been so hesitant to claim, these big goals that she has. And she was saying that afterwards she just had all of these women like in her messages being like, wow, that's so amazing, like so incredible, like well done you, it's so amazing. So often the things that we think that are bad that are going to happen are so minuscule, but we blow them up and we really minimize all of the positive things that could happen as a result as well. And I see us do this over and over again. I don't think we ever get to a point where we're not afraid to push ourselves outside of our comfort zone, and we have to lean on those tools again and again and again. But it's a real process to work through it, because it does bring up so much around, am I going to be safe if I do this thing?
I think that safety piece it's so much of everything I see with my clients as well, and just for myself. And I think it's so helpful to hear you say that and to name that and to normalize it, because I think so much of the messaging online almost paints a different picture, that there's a place in which you won't feel this, or there's a way in which you can avoid this, or there's a strategy that makes sure this will never happen. And there is a way to create that certainty and safety. And what I hear you saying, and this is a lot of conversations I have with my clients as well, is I think some of the biggest way for us to create safety for ourselves in business is seeing that this might happen and that we can handle it. And how can we show up and experience this and see that we can navigate it, or maybe it's not as bad as we think it is, or maybe it is, but that we can hold ourselves through that. And what you kind of closed with there that I hope everybody is hearing, it's something I have to remind myself of all of the time, is this is ongoing work. And I find what is it? People say new level, new devil. I think it's new level, same devil.
That's what I say.
I love that. I feel like we're so excited. But every level we get to, I find this myself. I'm in a place of expansion right now, and it's not like new stuff is coming up. It's easier for me to move through it, but it's the same stuff I've been working on for literally decades at this point. So it's
Totally.
And wearing a new outfit, it's easier to spot, it's easier to move through. But I think it's just so important to name, like, this stuff comes up. I just want to see, we have a comment. Hey, Jess. Omni OmniX Intel, I can never say this right, says the struggle of what hats should we wear, risk or reward. I don't know if that brings up anything for you to respond to, or if you want me to ask for a follow-up question there.
We can ask for a follow-up question for sure if they have more context that they want to share.
Do you want to give us a follow-up question on that? Because I just want to make sure we're speaking to that in the way that you're asking that. While we're waiting for that, I will ask you just kind of a follow-up piece here with the safety. aspect in what we were talking about, because I find it so true as well. Oftentimes when we have, think of it almost like a corrective experience, when we do the scary thing or have the scary thing happen, it's never as bad. At least in my experience, it's never as bad as what we think. And it's
Mm.
almost always blown out in our mind. But I wonder, because we're talking about the safety piece, and then there's also the other element of kind of where this conversation also started with your question of kind of building our business either around that shrinking smallness or around that, is this even something I want? Like, if nobody was going to see this, would I even want this? And I think that's a little bit of a different tangent to this question, but I wonder from that perspective with your work, some of the things that come up just in terms of that fulfillment piece.
Can you clarify your question, please?
Yeah, I guess because we kind of went down the lane here of more the safety piece and essentially a tall poppy syndrome. And if I get what I want, what will people think if I'm suddenly big and if I allow myself to have what I want? But I think there's also the other side to this question of, am I building something I don't even want just because it looks shiny and good for other
Got it.
people, which I think is almost like the other side of the shiny or the tall poppy. It's another form of safety.
Yeah. I honestly think that most of us are still doing this. Is my short answer.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to hear more unpack that, because I think it's so true, and I think especially in our online, I think no matter how much we know this, the online space just shoves at us what we're supposed to want, whether it's with our money or with our success or the type of business we're building.
Yeah, I think we often talk about conditioning, like learning from being, that 0 to 7 or those formative years.
Yes.
And we kind of forget that actually we are being reconditioned every single day of our lives. We are continuing to learn every single day of our lives. Every time we open up our phone and we see someone share a goal that they've just hit or something that they've just bought or an experience that they've just had, it's impossible to not be affected by that in some way. And your brain is going to give it a meaning. It's going to have an impact on the way that you then walk throughout your day, throughout your life, the decisions that you make. We are constantly being reconditioned by what everybody else is doing. And we live in an online space as well, where we're running our businesses being praised, for lack of a better term, being celebrated for the things that we achieve. And so, I had an experience like this when I first sort of started experiencing like the jump, I suppose, of my income back in 2022-ish. And, it was kind of the point where I started making a lot more money than, most people were making at that point. And I started having experiences like flying business class and, flying and staying, in 5-star hotels and all of these things that I'd wanted to have for a long time. And what ended up happening was I, would share these things and I would get so much praise for it that even though it was something that I wanted to do and I would have done it even if nobody was watching, I started getting reconditioned by that and thinking, oh, well, I have to keep flying business class. I have to keep doing this. I have to blah, 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 blah. And then that was actually where that question started. If nobody could see me have this, what would I still want to do? Because I had to really then think about, okay, well, what are the scenarios that I'm actually really happy to spend this money? What are the scenarios that I would actually prefer to have that money and put it into our investment accounts? Like just finding this nuance around what do I actually want? And so we are being continually conditioned by what we share, but also what we see other people share. And so when I say
feedback, I think what you're saying as well, right? Like the feedback we get,
yeah.
Even if it's positive, I mean, but that positive feedback can create a different kind of pressure for certain wiring that I think many of us have as business owners.
Yeah. Well, when we receive praise for, our brains work in such black and white, right? When we receive such praise for, I have this thing, I get this praise, then our brains will automatically make it mean a negative thing if we don't have that thing or if we don't share that thing. And what we have to really do is actually bypass all of that thinking. We have to actually retrain ourselves and be quite conscious about how we are thinking about everything that we are sharing or doing. And that can actually be a little bit tiring sometimes, but it is one of the things that I think is so important if we do want to actually set goals and have things that are fulfilling to us, and I think the other side of that is what if you set a goal and you hit it and you're so busy thinking about what are other people going to think of me and how are other people going to respond to this reel that I'm going to share or whatever it is, that you're actually not in it being present yourself. And so like it's a constant question for me, is thinking about what do I actually want, and am I just doing this for somebody else or someone else's reasoning that is not actually me?
I think I mean, both sides to this question, I think, are so important to unpack. I think this side here, I think about this every time I've had my biggest month in business.
Mm,
You would think, oh, that's such a great thing. And we're
mm,
in a space where it makes sense to what you were saying with the tall poppy syndrome, where it is helpful to share these things. It is inspiring for other people. It's also important for marketing. And I have found every time I have that, I have a little bit of a, whatever we want to call it, an upper limit, one of these places where I
mm,
have to kind of do this work, because I hit a place of suddenly there's all this pressure around, but what if it's not the same next month? What if I
yeah.
don't make more? And from this place of, who is this even for? What is this even for? I have done this work again at every level, but
Mm,
I resonate with that so deeply because of, it's almost like this pressure that comes with that. And the other
mm,
thought I had when you shared that came up around this, I'm athletic and I do quite well in my gym classes, and I will sometimes get called out by the coaches in terms of
mm,
positive praise. And I
mhm.
notice how much that'll then sometimes have me go to a gym class when I'm tired, when I just, what I'm doing, if I'm just asking what I could want, if nobody was watching, is I just want to go and have an easy, chill workout. I'm doing this for me. But as
Yeah.
soon as there's that praise and there's that almost element of, now this is for other people and what will people think, I feel
Mhm.
this pressure to perform and to hit a certain goal. And
Yeah.
that's in a freaking group fitness class.
Yeah.
And so just to normalize for everyone, and I do this work for a living and have been
Yeah.
unpacking this work and the layers of it, I think it is just such a real and insidious uh,
Yeah.
trap that if we're not mindful of, we abandon ourselves and start creating for everybody else
Yeah.
instead of ourselves.
Yeah. Again, it's that black and white thinking, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're not going to be perfect every time you go to the gym. You're not going to have you're a woman. You're not going to have consistent energy
yeah,
every
yeah,
single day of your
yeah.
life, you know?
Nor are you going to want to.
Yeah. And I think there's this expectation sometimes in business that like we're constantly growing and like each month is better than the
Oh
last
my
and each
gosh.
year is better than
Yeah,
the last.
yeah,
It doesn't work that way.
no,
Businesses go in
no.
seasons, and I think we I yeah, I'm very careful now how much I share about actual numbers and things like that, because I'm like, I really don't want people to think that, this is how business always has to be, or I'm, trying to share the ups and the downs and because we need to remember that actually that is what real life is like, and it's not that
That
we
is
need
what
to
real life
expect.
and what real business is. And if you look at the
Yes.
stock market, yeah, not to
Oh
cut
my
you off,
god,
but just to
yeah.
really emphasize this, I
Yeah.
think if we're talking about the idea of this being the richest and happiest CEO, I
Yes.
mean, that is literally how you become the wealthiest version of yourself in the stock market and in business, and
Totally.
happy is knowing that it looks like this. It's a up and
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
journey, fitness and in every aspect of life.
Yeah, and how do you invest when things are down? Like in the stock market, that's when you invest.
That is
When things
the
dip.
best. I mean, don't take financial advice from everyone, but I have trained my brain, because that's not,
Yeah.
I was very not risk tolerant, but I've trained my brain to now see that as, that's an opportunity. This is when things are on sale. This is, and when it's up, that's a different opportunity. But I expect it to do those
Yeah.
ups and downs, and I know that's how
Yes.
over decades I build
Yeah.
wealth. And similarly in my business, I know I celebrate my lowest income months, because I know my
Mhm.
lowest income months are what precede my biggest income months, and that is a part of a
Absolutely.
sustainable business.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna read
100%.
I'm gonna read our comments here.
Yeah.
Dr. I don't know if, I hope I'm not butchering anyone's name, but Dr. Queely, the anti-burnout coach, she was saying that's such a good point. Okay, so we've got to follow up on this question.
Mm.
Let's say we all play so many roles, but each has risk or reward. Most try something new and don't get the intended expectations or desires. They will
Mm.
never try again, and that's the real risk. Wait until you
Mm.
fly on corporate jet, shut to bubble. Oh gosh, I can only imagine. So yeah, I agree with that. I think the risk we put ourselves in, where we stop trying
Mm.
or where we stop investing or where we stop putting ourselves out there and don't try anything new, really is the bigger
Mm.
risk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and Dr. Queely says, thanks for sharing normalizing the ups and downs and the in between. I think it's so important and I would just love to hear your thoughts on this, to normalize, but I don't know how to communicate this in the way I wish to, but I don't just want to normalize it. I just feel like that is actually the path to becoming successful, rich, and happy and fulfilled, is seeing
Mm.
that that is not just normal. That is, there is no way around that. It's sort of like what you were saying
Yeah.
with, not that we have to create a doomsday scenario that if you get more visible, someone might not like it with the tall poppy syndrome, but that is
Yeah.
very possible. It's like there's no way to create big success in business and not to have some ups and downs. I think it's so much more about how, what we make them mean and how we navigate them. I mean, I don't know what comes up for you
Yeah.
around that.
Well, I also think that um, the success that we get to experience. Oh, my computer just went to sleep.
Oh,
Didn't know
mine
that could
did that
happen during
earlier,
a
but you're
live.
still here. Mine did that earlier.
Okay, note to self, that happens in a Substack live.
But you didn't go away.
Okay, good. Good, good, good. Success, we are not self-made. I really don't believe that any single person is self-made. We are successful because we had a combination of our inputs and the external environment at a particular point in time.
Yeah.
And so our success is always going to be dependent upon those two things. The last few years, we've seen this trust recession, and the buyer decision making really shifted, and a lot of people experienced drops in their business, and a lot of people quietly thought, oh my God, it's just me. I'm not as good as I thought that I was, or, maybe I fluked it, or maybe whatever. And then everybody sort of started talking and realized, oh no, this is something that a lot of people are going through. There are these external factors that have shifted. What used to work doesn't really work anymore. The way that people are buying has shifted. We always talk about recessions. There's a lot more uncertainty. So we're always operating in these environments where it's not just about what we are doing. It's also about what is going on externally. So
And that's
yes, there are always
positive
going to be
in air quotes and negative in air quotes, I think is what I'm
absolutely
picking up from you and what I'm hearing you
100%.
say.
And I think that that's something that's really important to remember, because yes, you have power, but your power has a limit.
Well, and your power is, to what you're saying, it's a co-creative,
Absolutely.
whatever we believe in, God, universe,
Mm,
ourselves. I always say scaling isn't a solo sport. And
mm,
it is never only, your power does have a limit, and it is being influenced by so many factors. Into what you're saying, I don't know you well enough, but I'm assuming you don't subscribe to or encourage a victim mindset. But I think that is very different
mm,
than being a victim to
mm,
circumstances or changes in the
mhm.
industry or changes in the market
Absolutely.
or
Yeah.
the normal fluctuations that happen, and
Mhm.
not making yourself wrong and beating yourself up and bashing
Yes.
yourself when those things
Yes.
happen. That instead of being able to see them as, oh, this isn't my fault, this is what's happening, which makes it easier to ride the wave and come out
Yeah.
with a different outcome.
It depersonalizes it, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, this is what's happening. Who am I going to be in this scenario?
Yes. Yep.
It's like, sure, I'm going to have to zag now. That was my plan. That wasn't working anymore. Now I just have to shift what I'm doing. And that's just business.
And then that's kind of back to the normalization of, this isn't a you problem, to what you're saying, right? This isn't you personally are a bad human or did something wrong or don't have the right power or the right mindset or whatever the noise is. This is simply, this is business. This is the nature of business. And the more we can see that neutrally, I find the easier it is to then become someone who has a very, very, very different outcome
Mm.
and is one of
Mhm.
those outlier stories.
Yeah.
Just going to see. Oh, I see a couple nice names. Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Allison. Hi, Meredith. Wasn't sure if we had a question there. I want to be mindful of your time. I know you said you had a little bit of time here, but I'm just wondering on this tread, because I do think that since we're going into the trust recession kind of side of
Mm.
things, and we have
Mm.
seen, I don't know, it's been interesting. I've seen both a lot of businesses in, let's just call it, if it's ebbs and flows, right? Maybe
Mhm.
more of an ebb, but I've also seen a lot of businesses really pop off or be in a flow because of this. And I
Mm.
do think it's important, at least for me, to like name both sides of that. But I'm curious from your lens and perspective, with just even we're talking about with the fulfillment side of things and
Mm.
the like the alignment, I think, is what has been underneath this as well. Just what conversations you've been having with your clients with the trust recession and navigating some of those changes, and just even what you've been seeing.
Mm. Yeah, well, I think, I mean, this is a big conversation, a big question, but there's a lot of, I think, I work with a lot of very smart, well educated, very well trained humans. They're very, very good in their fields.
Yep.
And so this has actually been an opportunity for them.
That's what I've seen as
Uh,
well.
yeah. But because a lot of smart, really well educated people often have to learn how to market themselves, this has
Mhm.
it's been an opportunity, but it's not just a natural, like, oh, you're automatically going to be
Mhm,
successful.
mhm, mhm,
You
mhm.
know, there has to be a level of like, you actually have to have a level of audacity to claim, to build success in business. You do have to have that kind of confidence really to lead with
Mhm.
that. You've got to obviously learn how to sell. The skills of educating are so different to the skills of selling, and you do have to make that shift, and that can be a really hard one for a lot of people to make. And so, yeah, if you're selling snake oil and people can see that, this will have been a really tough time, right? But if you are someone who is really good at what they do, your clients actually get results, this has been an opportunity for them. And I think the really cool thing that I often see as well, and like this, you didn't ask this, but this is just a byproduct, is like when I see these really smart humans start to make more claims in their marketing and selling, fair claims, honest claims,
Yep, yep,
but when they
yep.
start to have that audacity, that actually has a flow on effect to how they are coaching and working with clients and consulting,
Yes.
etc. Because they actually have more belief in their work.
Yes. It, like,
And then
becomes
that
the mindset work, right? Like, it's almost like they
yeah,
have to walk their talk and reinforce that in their work.
yes, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
They have more of a belief in their work. They show up differently to their work. They get better results from their clients, and it becomes this beautiful new, like, I guess, pathway that just becomes self-reinforcing. So yes, I think that it has actually been an amazing thing. And I actually think the trust recession is incredible. Like, especially in the coaching world, it was too much of a bubble. There were too many people, like too few people right at the very top making all of the money selling absolute nonsense. And now we're starting to see, I actually am seeing a leveling out. I don't know if you're
Yep,
seeing this.
yep,
There are a
yep,
lot more people kind of like in this middle band who are
yep.
all kind of like working with each other and helping each other. It doesn't feel so much like the pyramid that it used to be.
Yeah,
I don't know if
I
you've noticed
think,
that.
yeah, no, I've noted, well, just to piggyback on a couple of things, I've noticed for sure. I think if I think about a recession, we think recessions are so bad, but a financial recession happens because there's too much inflation, because
Mm,
the market has gone wackadoo and we need to balance it out, right? Our industry needed a
yeah.
trust recession. To what you're saying, we had
Mm,
some I heard some stories where I was like,
yeah.
how is this happening?
Mm,
So, and I think in that way, to what you're saying, if you're smart and in integrity, this is such an opportunity. We still have to ride the wave of this and navigate it, but
mhm,
I've just seen it really be an opportunity for so many people to
yeah.
speak to that part. So I've very much seen the same. I've definitely seen it leveling out, and I think to what you're saying, I think it's been a really beautiful gift in many ways, because I think it's cleared some people out. It's leveled people out. I think people are still craving coaching. If anything, I think they're craving it more
100%.
than ever. And I think, to kind of the beginning of our conversation with the tall poppy syndrome aspect, I think it's really, I don't like the word forced. I'm just trying to think of the right word here. I think it's really encouraged the type of person I think you're working with, and the type of client I'm working with, who I think does tend to want to hide in plain sight a little bit and not be so
Mhm,
braggalicious and doesn't want to be one of them. I think it really
mm,
has encouraged them to lean in,
yeah.
to speak more, to, because they have to say I'm not one of them. With the
Mm,
caveat of, and this, I'm really interested to hear your perspective on this from a conditioning standpoint. The one piece I've seen a little bit of kind of like a, almost like a detrimental fallback. I do think for some of my clients who I see have a lot of like that good girl conditioning, good guy conditioning, the people pleasing.
mm,
I find there's such a need to almost abandon themselves and overcompensate to prove they're not one of the bad
yeah.
coaches or therapists. So I would say like that's the
Mhm.
only place I would put my little asterisks.
Yeah, totally. I mean, again, we're being conditioned all of the time, right? So we saw all of these people get pulled down for doing a bad job, and we're like, but wait, we're not like that. We're not one of those ones. And so, yeah, it is, right? And that's why we have coaches. That's why we have mentors to point those things out to us when they can see those things happening in our content or in our own personal experience. But yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of people just afraid to be called out,
Yeah.
And some of them rightly so, and some of them like that would never happen, or even if it did happen, that would not be correct about your work, so it's learning to trust. It's learning to trust who you are inside of success as well. Like I often talk about this with clients, is like, if you are, I work with a lot of coaches and therapists and things like that. If you really believe in the quality of your work and you're happy to be wrong, you're happy to receive feedback,
Love
you're
that.
happy to adapt and go, you're continuously like invested in your own professional development, if you are someone who is committed to the client experience, if something bad were to ever happen, if someone were to say anything bad about you, one, you would have the self-reflective power to look back on that relationship with a fine-tooth comb and go, okay, where did the fracture happen? What actually went wrong? How could we have repaired that? How can I learn from that? How can we repair that now? The people who are being called out are not really looking at any of that. They're not willing to take
Yes. Yeah.
responsibility or reflective about it. They just kind of pass it off. So like, it's not that because you're good at what you do, you're never going to have an unhappy client. That's not the case at all. I've had unhappy clients. Like, we all have
I think
friction points with
everybody
different people.
has or has had some sort of disagreement or misalignment. I really,
Yeah.
really, really, really appreciate that because I think that's something that so many people need to hear. I think I mean, it goes back to so many different things we've touched on, but I think we think then the antithesis to the trust recession is now being a perfect coach or human,
Yes.
right? Who never
Yeah.
does anything wrong, who has all the answers, who knows everything, who can guarantee everybody gets a result, makes all the money in the world, never has a problem, never. And that's almost like the
It
opposite of
doesn't
what we're doing as
exist.
coaches. Like that doesn't exist, but also like it's kind of the opposite of our jobs as coaches, therapists. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, our job is to hold people in the hard times
Yeah.
and the challenges. And because that isn't a case, but I really, really love what you said here because I think it not only gives permission, but it's such a tool and a reminder that not only is it normal that these things might happen, but if so, we have the skills not only to handle it, but to take personal responsibility. And people who take personal responsibility are never, that was never the people who the trust recession problems were about. It's the people
Yeah.
who aren't taking personal responsibility. And if you
Yes.
have that skill set, you can trust yourself to be
Yeah.
able to look inward and see like, okay, maybe I do have something to clean up here. And that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's not the end of the world. You'll just grow as a human if you look at it as a growing experience.
Yeah. And
Mm.
on the flip side, I think to what we're both saying, and if you have a coach, they can also support you to see when maybe you're taking too much
Mm.
personal responsibility. Because I think that's the other pendulum swing I see a lot with clients is almost like taking all the ownership in a
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that there is too much. I'm not going to say that it's having a business coach is so much more about handling these moments than it is about teach me how to market or teach me how to sell,
Yes.
like
Yes.
it's
Not
like
to say that there isn't value in that too, but that's 10% of my calls.
absolutely. It's, we are humans
Yeah.
running
Yeah.
businesses with other humans.
Yeah.
There's going to be friction at some point. Like it's just not ever not going to happen. So, that's why we have the outsider perspective, because when we're in it, when it's our baby, we are way too close to it and we give it way too much meaning. And I mean, I've had times where I haven't had a coach, and these one little thing, like these tiny little things that shouldn't have been anything if I'd taken it to my coach, snowballed. And then I had to go back and undo that work again. So it's like, I don't know if I'll ever be without a coach again. I wouldn't have said that a few years ago, but yeah.
I mean, I've been working with the same coach for 8 years, so there's a reason for it. And not that I don't value her support in marketing and sales and that she isn't
Mm,
excellent at that, but I do that for a living. That not that I don't need outside eyes on that, but so much of our work to what you're saying is catching me in my own patterns, being, oh, I just went black. There we go.
oh,
Being the mirror for me, being the person to reflect me and helping me when
mm,
situations come up, some of which are real and a lot of which are imagined in my head, which I'm very, very good at. If I don't have somebody there to say, this isn't even
yeah.
real.
What are you talking about?
Yes. And
Where did
that
that come
is
from?
as someone who does this for a living with clients all day long. And
Mm,
so I say that as well, just to co-sign what you're saying, but just for anybody, it's not like just because you've learned this or studied this that you don't
mm,
also, I think, need that support. And sometimes I
yeah.
think we need it more because we're
Oh,
holding so
well,
many people.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, therapists need therapists, right? Like, we need someone else holding space for us when we are doing the space holding all the time.
And I think kind of to put a bow on it, and then I'll read the final comments here, but I think with the idea of being the richest and happiest CEO, I think it's so easy for us to think it's just about chasing money. It's just about chasing the next income goal. It's just about doing what more followers, what everybody says online. But I think it's so much of what we're talking about here as well, where it's not just the alignment and what I want this if other people could see or not, but I think it's also having that support to navigate the very normal human things. And to be able to have someone hold us in all the things we're holding and to put those things on the shelf so we can also enjoy the things that we've created. Because I think, I don't know, I know for me, otherwise I will personally self-sabotage and not allow myself to enjoy what I've created because it's so easy just to get looped around problems that almost aren't real.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, and like we were saying at the start, fulfillment and happiness is so much more than just what you have in your life. It is really about your personal experience and who you are inside your own head. And, that's why we have that support, is so that we can untangle those things so that we can be present and actually enjoy what we have worked so hard to create.
I feel like that's the mic drop moment to close on. I feel like that's, if I could bottle everything succinctly and what I love about everything I've learned about your work. I'm going to read these last comments and then I want everybody to know where they can learn more about you. Okay. Omni Excel yes. Well said, it takes so many. That's when we're talking about it not being solo. It's hard for people to see the reality. Often if you change the thinking, they will reject your premises. It's extremely confusing. Coaches need coaches. Great statement. I mean, I'm biased, but we all need coaches. I want to honor your time, but do you have any other just closing thoughts, anything you want to say that we didn't get to leave on? If not, I'd love for you to also share where people can find you, what you have going on, because I really respect, admire your work, and I think you have a lot of great things for people.
Yeah, thanks. No, I think yes, there are a million different tangents that we could go on.
we could do this for 17 hours.
I've loved this. But I need my second coffee and we need to let everybody go. So no, this has been amazing. I think you're right. That last little moment was a nice way to tie things up. I just think that there is so much power in knowing what is going to make you fulfilled and make you happy, and being able to put your blinders up and focus on that is going to be one of the most important skills that you'll ever learn in business.
I feel like I'm going to cry. It's everything.
It's everything.
And it's everything. And to the coaches need coaches conversation, it's the thing that you don't arrive at. You arrive at it and then you have to rediscover it and come back to it and be held in it. But it's everything.
And what a privilege. I think about that every day. What a privilege that I get to do that work. I don't know if you think about that daily. I'm just pinch myself.
No, same. I journal about it. I like that. I mean, I think you probably feel similarly from what I can tell of you, where I love my clients, and it just is such a gift to hold space for their success, for their journey, for all the stuff they're going through, to witness them in that. It is just the privilege of all privileges.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's the best. So yeah, if you guys want to come and follow me, you guys should be able to click. I'm assuming you should be able to click my name or come on over and find Carly, Fortune Fulfilled. I've got lots of good things going on. I'm actually writing an essay series at the moment about lessons that I learned from psychology that make me a better coach. So you guys can come over and read that if you want to. It's part of the lead up to the launch for the Midas Coach, which is my professional development program for coaches who want to be psychology based. Kaylee is actually part of it.
Amazing.
She's a big fan. So you guys can come over and see what I'm up to if you would like to. But thank you so much, Kim. This has been just amazing. Great way to start my day.
Been such a pleasure. We've got to thank you both. Great chat. Yes, privilege of a lifetime. Just thank you so much. I just so appreciate your work. Everybody who's listening, please go follow Carly. Definitely. I will be checking out the Midas Coach as well. More. I was peeking around online. Your work is so incredible, and I'll be reading your articles. And just thank you so much for sharing your time and waking up early to give us your wisdom. I appreciate you so much.
Thanks, Kim. Thank you everyone for being here.
Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. Bye.
Bye.